The high-end weapons you can craft with blueprints in the Division produce some of the best high-end weapons in the Division, simply because you can choose which of the very powerful weapon talents you want in your gun, given that you have the crafting materials to do so. Yes, you might win the Division lottery and get that high-end weapon you've always wanted, but getting the right weapon talents on that weapon on top of that is about as likely as Trump going into office. So for those of us that don't have a golden horseshoe up our tailpipe, I've come up with a list of 19 high-end craftable weapons that have at least one random talent through crafting from the 6 different categories of weapons, examining each of these weapons in one challenge mode and downing at least one player in PvP too, seeing how well they stack up against other weapons in their category, ultimately to find the best weapons and weapon combos that are reliably available in the Division. Now, if you're only here to learn about the best gun in each of the categories for PvE and PvP, click the conclusion annotation at the bottom. If you want to learn about a certain category of weapons, click which one you'd like to learn about, or if you're here to learn as much as possible about the best weapons in the Division, then stay tuned. Assault rifles in the Division excel among other weapon categories between 20 and 30 meters. Their high rate of fire and damage make them beasts, but beasts are difficult to tame, making the assault rifle category the hardest weapon category to master. The base damage and accuracy of the AK-74 is fairly high compared to other assault rifles, but its rate of fire is one of the lowest. In PvE, this weapon hits hard and can produce some high numbers, but the rate of fire simply lets it down compared to other assault rifles that can easily out-DPS this weapon. Sadly, upping the rate of fire makes this weapon extremely unstable at more than 10 meters. Simply put, the recoil on the AK-74 is just too damn high to produce consistent numbers in PvE. In PvP, the AK is a very hard-hitting weapon in close-range combat, and if you can control the recoil, can really punish any opponent due to its high accuracy, helping with bursting headshots and hip fire. All in all, it's a fun and easy weapon to PvP with. The biggest drawback of this weapon is how it's a free-shot burst fire weapon, and how the rate of fire number here is just a straight up lie. From tests, the SA-58 pumps out roughly 500 rounds per minute, not including reloads, making it one of the slowest firing assault rifles in the game. On top of this, the accuracy is very low and the stability is below average, but the optimal range is one of the highest I've seen on an assault rifle. In PvE, this weapon can inflict some high damage numbers and works great over range, but only if you can counteract the high free shot burst recoil, which will take some practice. Now, even if you manage to master this weapon, and it will be difficult to do so, most other assault rifles will simply out-DPS this slow firing weapon. In PvP, this is a hard-hitting weapon, but unless you're over 30 meters from your target, most other assault rifles will dominate you. This is one of the worst weapons for PvP on this list due to its lack of burst damage. The base damage of the ACR is decent, and so is its rate of fire, with the stats of this weapon being average for an assault rifle, but does boast one of the fastest reload speeds I've seen on an assault rifle. In PvE, this weapon is a powerhouse, producing high damage while remaining incredibly stable, way more stable than the AK-74, Liberator or any other assault rifle I've tested, even with a rate of fire magazine. The ACR is sorely underappreciated in the Division and deserves way more attention. Because of the ACR's high accuracy, stability and rate of fire, it's one of the best assault rifles to PvP with, but if you hip fire a lot in PvP, the ACR isn't the best, so aiming down sights is recommended with this weapon in PvP. Light machine guns in the Division excel among other weapon categories between 30 and 40 meters. They're known for being the most stable automatic weapons when used with cover, and can be unrelenting at great distances. The damage of the M60 is on par with other LMGs, but the rate of fire is slightly lower. Comparing it to the M249 Para, the M60 has mostly better stats all around. In PvE, this weapon is best used at range. With an extended mag, you'll rarely ever have to reload, and you can reliably headshot hostiles with ease at great distances. In my opinion, this is the best large mag LMG for how stable it is compared to the M249 Para. If you're going to PvP with the M60, stay as far back as you possibly can and use cover. While the M60 pumps out consistent, reliable damage, it will get destroyed by most other weapons in close combat due to its painfully low burst damage. The stats of the RPK are closely related to that of assault rifles. Comparing these stats to other LMGs makes the RPK a fantastic weapon stat-wise, especially when it comes to rate of fire and accuracy, but it does lack in range. In PvE, the RPK is quite stable, has low recoil and has a decent sized mag with an extended mod, but because you cannot equip an underbarrel, the other LMGs catch up on stability and accuracy and can produce more sustained damage output over range, making the RPK some kind of half-breed between assault rifles and LMGs. Now the RPK is an excellent weapon and a personal favourite of mine, but why have an RPK when an assault rifle does more damage and has better stats with mods equipped? Of all the LMGs, the RPK is the best LMG to use for PvP for its fast reloads, accuracy and hipfire capabilities, but like all LMGs it lacks in burst damage, so falls short when up against most other weapons in the Dark Zone. The base stats of the M249 are the lowest of the LMGs on this list, but it does have slightly faster rate of fire compared to the M60. In PvE, this weapon lacks in nearly all stats compared to the M60, and it's a noticeable difference. The M249 has hard to control recoil, even with high stability mods, and remains as untamed as most high rate of fire assault rifles. I'd say it's the worst of the LMGs on this list for PvE because it lacks sustained damage over range, one of the few reasons that LMGs have a place in the division to begin with. In PvP, it's slightly better than the M60 because it has an increased rate of fire, so it can pump out more burst damage, but still it's not enough burst damage, and the only reason you should use this weapon in PvP is to silence players that have microphones like this. Marksman rifles excel over other weapon categories between 40 and 60 meters. Like LMGs, Marksman rifles get a bonus when used in cover, but also have a headshot damage bonus attribute to encourage going for headshots. So if you like larger numbers like this and have good timing skills, Marksman rifles are debatably the best weapon category available in the division. The M44 is the only weapon on this list that's bolt action, so the rate of fire is going to be extremely low, but it makes up for that by producing some of the largest numbers found in game. Comparing it to DMRs, all of the stats on the M44 are lower, apart from the optimal range, which is the same. In PvE, every shot from the M44 counts. If you miss a headshot, you are seriously reducing your damage output, so having good aim and not having an itchy trigger finger is vital to using this weapon effectively. Now, even if you master this weapon, a DMR with the balanced weapon talent will out DPS the M44 easily, simply because the DMR is more forgiving when you miss. In PvP with a high firearms build, the M44 is the king of burst damage, especially with the right weapon talents. But if you've gone for a high stamina build like I have with this character, Marksman rifles in general lack the very high burst damage required to take down geared enemies in one shot. So in order for the M44 to be effective in PvP, you will need to sacrifice some survivability. The Police Mk17, SOCOM Mk20 SSR, and Tenebrae blueprints essentially produce the same weapon, so I'm going to go over these three weapons together. All three of these DMRs have the same stats, but because the SOCOM is item level 30, while the other two are item level 31, the Mk17 and Tenebrae will have more damage per bullet as shown here, eliminating the SOCOM from the running. Now, if you didn't know, the balanced weapon talent is almost vital for DMRs to be as effective as they can possibly be in the division. As an example, this is a DMR without the balanced weapon talent, and this is with the balanced weapon talent. The chances of getting the balanced weapon talent on the Tenebrae is 1 in 16 because it only has one random weapon talent. We're getting the balanced weapon talent on the Police Mk17 is roughly a 1 in 6 chance because it has 3. Not to mention the Tenebrae has talents that could be better and requires division tech to craft, making the Police Mk17 a clear winner among these 3 blueprints. The Police Mk17 in PvE with the balanced weapon talent is one of the best weapons on this list, certainly better than the punishing M44 at damage output, but unless you have a high ammo capacity or constant ammo refills, you will find yourself running out of ammo pretty quickly with the Police Mk17. In PvP you cannot compete with the one-shotting M44, but the Mk17 still has decent burst damage and is better in every situation the M44 is not. I found that going with a decent amount of firearms was still required to make full use of the burst damage of this Marksman rifle. Shotguns excel over other weapon categories between 0 and 10 meters, and if your aim is near perfect, can compete with the burst damage of submachine guns in PvP between this range. The 8 pellets fired from each shotgun act as individual projectiles, improving the activation chance of some talents. Compared to other shotguns, the SASG has good accuracy, rate of fire, range and reload speed, but it does lack in damage to the point where it has the lowest base damage of any shotgun. In PvE, the SASG does show the potential of shotguns, maintaining a steady stream of damage with a fast reload. Not as much as a submachine gun, but enough for shotguns to be a viable option if you're close enough to your target. In PvP, although the SASG has a fast rate of fire, it simply cannot deliver compared to other close-range weapons. The SASG is great for PvE, but unless you're getting headshots consistently in PvP, shotguns are easy to shrug off. The Super 90 lacks in nearly every department compared to the SASG, especially when attaching an extended mag, which somehow reverses the space-time continuum. Apart from all the downsides here though, the Super 90 does provide roughly 20% more base damage per shot compared to the SASG. In PvE, the reload time of the Super 90 and the fact that you need to get even closer to your target makes this worse than the SASG. It does more damage, yes, but the downtime of reloading and getting closer to your target mitigates that benefit. In PvP, the Super 90 isn't much better than the SASG, but it does provide more burst damage due to hitting 20% harder. Even when you factor in the slower rate of fire, the Super 90 is one of the best shotguns for PvP. Sidearms in the division are only really used with the ballistic shield or when low on ammo, but that doesn't mean they're not useful, especially when this sidearm hits for 250k crits. While technically a shotgun, this sawed-off sidearm has the exact same stats as the Cassidy, even range, and can have 3 random weapon talents when crafted. In PvE, you will need to get really close to output the damage of the pistols in this category, so it's recommended you have a ballistic shield to complement this powerful sidearm. In PvP, you will need to have a decent amount of firearms and the one is none talent to bring down players quickly, but the sawed-off does provide the best burst damage of the sidearms on this list. The Officer's M9A1, Px4 Storm Type T, and Tactical M1911 produce very similar results in PvE and PvP, so I'm going to review these weapons together. The M9A1 has decent damage, stability and rate of fire, and the largest mag size of the 3. The Px4 Storm has a high rate of fire, a decent magazine size, but its damage really lets it down. The 1911 has the lowest accuracy, mag size and range of the 3 pistols, but what it lacks in these 3, it more than makes up for in damage, not to mention this is the only pistol of the 3 that allows a magazine mod and an underbarrel mod. Just as an FYI here, the only underbarrel mod that fits on the pistol appears to be this small laser pointer, which you should have a blueprint for. In PvE, the 1911 can cause some serious sustained damage, and in my opinion is the best craftable sidearm to accompany a shield. Just make sure you're closer than 10 meters to your target to make the most of this weapon. In PvP, none of the pistols cause enough burst damage to be a decent threat to players, so the sawed-off shotgun is better for its ability to ambush. Submachine guns excel over other weapon categories between 10 and 20 meters. This weapon category is, in my opinion, the strongest, not just because you get roughly 25% crit chance as standard, but because most SMGs have crazy high base damage and crazy high rate of fire. The Navy MP5N, Tactical AUG A3P, and Vector 45 ACP produce very similar results in PvE and PvP, so I'm going to review these weapons together. The MP5 has fairly average stats across the board compared to the other two SMGs. It reigns supreme in rate of fire and magazine size, but lags quite far behind in base damage. The AUG has the highest accuracy and range of the three while producing a decent amount of base damage. It has a mag size that's average for an SMG, but has the lowest rate of fire of these three. The Vector has the highest base damage of the three and a rate of fire somewhere in between these two. Where the Vector falls short is accuracy, range and magazine size, but it does have a fast reload speed. Now which one you choose is mainly based on personal preference, but if you only care about numbers, the AUG is best for PvE with its high accuracy, base damage, range and how the AUG is easy to control. And with the right weapon talents, the AUG shreds most challenge mode enemies in less than a mag. In PvP, the MP5 is equal to the Vector. Yes, the Vector has a lot more burst damage than the MP5, but if you don't bring down a player that has an MP5 in the first mag with the Vector, chances are the MP5 is going to win due to its 60% increase in magazine size over the Vector. So I'd say the Vector is great for bringing down one enemy quickly, but the MP5 is better for multiple targets. I believe the main reason the Vector is so popular is due to its low requirements at the crafting table. So there you have it, the 19 craftable high-end weapons currently available in the division that allow at least one random weapon talent. And from all of this information we can conclude that the best PvE weapons from each category is the ACR from the assault rifles, the black Market M60 from the LMGs, the police Mk17 with the balanced weapon talent from the Marksman rifles, unless you get lucky enough to find the same talent on an M1A, the SASG from shotguns, the M1911 from Sidearms, and the AUG from SMGs. For PvP, the best weapons in each category is the ACR or AK-74 from the assault rifles, the RPK from the LMGs, the police Mk17 with the balanced talent from the Marksman rifles, unless you get lucky enough to find the same talent on the M1A, the Super 90 from the shotguns, the sawed-off shotgun from the sidearms, and the MP5 or Vector from the submachine guns. Now if you've only watched the conclusion of this video, I'd recommend you see my reasoning behind these choices before you conclude that I'm wrong, so here are the weapon category links again. If you learned something in this video, please do give it a like because it took a long ass time to do this research, but now I can rest in knowing that I have a great setup. Thank you for watching, and remember that choosing a weapon because you like using it is the most powerful stat of them all.